Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and my guest today is the beautiful Constance Mcclain. She's done so much in her career, which we'll talk about. But she's a published author of Mindful Paths to Living Spirituality.
A step toward living.
There it is. A Step Towards a Living Spirituality. Beautiful book. Thanks for holding it up for us.
Yes, my partner.
Go ahead.
My partner who co-wrote it with me and has been helping me since my stroke with my teaching at school, because I teach from my wheelchair. And he always has to show me the name, because I went to a school called Spiritual Paths. And so when I thought of the name Mindful Paths, Steps Toward a Living Spirituality, of course, I supplement spiritual paths all the time. He can't believe that I can't remember the name of my own book.
Well, you know, I can understand that, since you've had a stroke. Let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning. You've had such a great background. You graduated from university in Montana. Is that correct?
Yes, my undergrad was at the University of Montana.
And then you went on to get a graduate degree or master's in human potential and development, correct?
Right. It was 12 years in between. I had a music and acting career in between. I graduated in music from undergrad, and so that's what I did. I was on the road for a long time.
That is so cool.
I ended up in Dallas.
Wow. You have all these talents. Thanks for sharing that. That's amazing.
Now I can't even hear pitch since my stroke. Isn't that weird? Who knew?
Yeah. I know that stroke was life-changing, but prior to the stroke, you were teaching at University, UCSB, right?
Yes, and before that at grad school at the University of Oregon. I'm a duck.
Awesome. Oh, there are going to be a lot of fans cheering for you right now. There's so many. They're rabid fans.
Yes, I am a proud duck.
Once a duck, always a duck, right?
Yes, and if you're in Montana, once a grizzly, you're always a grizzly.
There you go. Yeah. So I think I want to talk to you about the inception of this spiritual path you've been on. You certainly embody spirituality today, but I know that it was a process to get here. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of share your story.
Okay. Well, growing up, I grew up in a very intellectual kind of family and musical family. And my father didn't know if he was an atheist or an agnostic, because I think he really was far more spiritual through his music than he realized.
Sure.
In the 50s, you know.
Sure.
And 60s. So as a little girl, my big sister had no interest in religion or anything spiritual in nature, but I just naturally did. And so when I was a kid, when I sat down in the edge of my bed when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I can't totally remember when it was, and I was frustrated about something, and I started to pray. And the only education really I'd been given about that was my mother dropped me off at some summer school church program in Eugene, Oregon, when my dad was teaching there at the University of Oregon. And so Jesus was in my consciousness, you know, that way. But I didn't connect Jesus and God as being one at all. I didn't understand much about the trilogy, of course, because I really wasn't educated at all. So I sat down on the edge of my bed and I just started praying, and I looked up, I remember, to the ceiling, and I said, "Oh God, just give me something important to do." Because I always wanted to be in service. Even as a little kid, I was.
And you're like 4 or 5 at this time.
I was little, but I was already feeling the pressure of peer pressure, because I was taller than every child, really young, and then I started to put on weight along with the height. So I was a big kid, and so I was ostracized a bit for that. So I think my compassion just grew really young.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, that's so sweet. So let's fast forward. You worked at UC Santa Barbara for a while, and then it sounds like after 5 years, you just had a real calling to focus on your spiritual life. So maybe you can talk to us about that transition.
Well, it was interesting because even after that early, grade school age, then during grade school, I would go off to different churches of my own accord. And seeking. My parents never knew until I came home one day and told my parents I had just gone to it was a Holy Roller church. It was called I can't even remember the name, but my best girlfriend, her family went there. And so they just brought me up with their 7 kids and threw me in the car. And we went to this revival meeting. For real.
Oh my God.
So I came home and I'm all on fire and my dad's just sitting there like he didn't know what to do with me. It was too fun. And from that point on, then I enrolled myself in a summer school Catholic program for math because I didn't do well in math. And ever since I was a little girl and watched all the nun movies, when you're like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I wanted to be a nun. I really had this sense of being a nun. And so then fast forward that I was reading a lot of Eastern philosophy in high school and college and got turned on to a guy by the name of Louis Rampa, who wrote a book called The Third Eye, among many others.
I love that book. That was such a good one.
Oh, so you read it. I've never known anybody that read it.
Yes.
Wendy, that's great.
I love that book. It was great.
Yeah, it really was a great book. I need to rebuy that book and read it again. And so that catalyzed, of course, everything after that. And for years, I was really looking for something that was more metaphysical than the religiosity that I was feeling in the churches that I was ending up in. And ending up in Dallas, that preceded me coming to UCSB. My music career brought me to Dallas, actually. And I met a guy, and we were running partners for a while. And he was a Christian Scientist. And so he asked me if I knew about Mary Baker Eddy and Christian Science. And I said, no, I know nothing about it. And
she was pretty remarkable too. Oh my gosh, she was so fine.
Yeah, she sure was. And so that was my first metaphysical healing. And I was doing triathlons then. And I was going to be doing a triathlon at the end of this certain week. And I used to get a lot of migraine headaches, which relates to the hole in my heart that almost killed me in 2013 with the stroke.
Yeah.
And he used to, if I complained about something hurting, like my knee hurt or if something hurt, he'd go, don't give it any power. And that's when I first got into the whole understanding of what a metaphysic might be. So then that catalyzed me to go back because I was really a big fan and student of Gene Houston at that time. And so when I saw the University of Oregon having this human performance graduate program, I went, oh, that's it. That's what I want. Because I already had a huge fitness background through the Cooper Institute in Dallas.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I grew up in fitness. So, and I was a physical fitness clown for kids in Dallas. I'd go around with this outfit and I'd go to schools and take little kids and try to work with them. And I'd had no training with doing that, but it was really quite a magical period spiritually for me as well.
Amazing. Sounds amazing.
Yeah. Because I didn't have any children of my own.
Right.
Then UCSB and being in Santa Barbara, I knew I wanted to continue my education because that's just who I am. I'm always
learning.
The kind of person, that spent all her money on workshops, singing, acting, it didn't matter, that related to professionalism and my passions. And so I ended up finding a program that Joan Borisenko was starting. And ironically, I was flying out east to go to a workshop of hers I think it was probably the spring of 2005. And right before I went out there, her office manager put out a letter that she was starting a program called the Claritas program. And
what
that
was it called? Tell me what it was called.
Claritas. CLAR. It's no
Claritas.
longer functioning. Yeah.
Okay.
I think she wanted to retire with that, but it just wasn't in the cards because it was very expensive school to run. But it was magical school. And so it was all about spiritual inquiry and mentoring, spiritual direction, that kind of thing.
That's perfect for you.
It really was.
Good for you.
So, yeah, so I did that. And what was really special about that is the first day they put all the different people together in area code basic areas to work together in pods. So our pod was pod 8. And that's, of course, the infinity number.
Yes, it is.
And I was born at 218 on 218. So I have a very special connection to 8.
Yes. Wow.
And then we were in pod 8, and those girls are still my friends to this day. What a
Really?
wonderful experience.
That's
Yeah, including
cool.
Joan, who's now moved from Boulder, where we did the school. Now she's in New Mexico, but she's still doing tons of work. Bless her little heart.
So that cracked you open. It sounds like that school was a really pivotal part of your journey.
Yes, it was. Very much so. And then after that, which was really cool, I was back east when the Dalai Lama was doing his mind life meetings, and they had gotten too big to hold anymore in Boston at Harvard. And they were going to hold one in DC. And so I decided I was going to go to that one. I went, and I heard this man speak who was actually from Santa Barbara. And he used to be one of the Dalai Lama's interpreters in English. Name is Dr. Alan Wallace. And what a wonderful Buddhist teacher. So he got up to speak, and it was like, I felt like these meteors were just going all over my head. And I couldn't catch, I couldn't catch them all. And I went, oh my gosh, I need to talk to him.
Right.
So in Claritas, we needed to have a spiritual director, of course, to work with if you were going to be one yourself. And the one that I chose of one of the people that they brought into school in Boulder, well, I found it didn't work well with me. We didn't work well. He was a Hindu teacher, and that wasn't really my main direction, Hinduism. Right. So then I was in a position where I needed to find somebody else. So just coming back on the plane from DC, I looked up Alan Wallace's email. And I wrote him an email and I said, dear Dr. Wallace, I'm just coming back from, I must have done it on the plane, from listening to you at the Mind and Life meetings with the Dalai Lama. And I said, I need a spiritual director because I'm in Joni Borisenko's Claritas program, figuring that he knew who she was, and who knows, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. He shot me back, Wendy, an email within seconds.
Wow.
It said, oh, here, and it gave me the phone number and the name of somebody by the name of Ed Bastian. And so then Ed Bastian, I called the number, and it was a Colorado number, so I didn't even know where I was calling, really, to be quite honest. And he picked up the phone. I called him from my then office, and I was just shocked. I was just sort of shaking with the vibe of the whole thing, being, And I'd also met Father Thomas Keating because he was there too. He was one of my heroes. And so my heart had been beating like this the whole time, just fluttering. And Ed said, oh, hi, Constance. Well, yes, I would like to meet you. He said, would you like to come over and meditate with us next Wednesday? And I go, where are you? I said, I'm not going to come to Boulder to meditate. I'm in Santa Barbara. And he said, oh, I'm in Santa Barbara at La Casa de Maria.
What?
Yeah.
You're kidding. That is so crazy. Oh my God.
I'm shaking again, reliving this. Thank you for the opportunity. It's a really amazing feeling.
Wow, the universe is just like lining all these people up for you so beautifully. Wow.
Yeah, it really was amazing. So then I was there with Ed at the beginning of him creating his program called Spiritual Paths Institute. He already had the Spiritual Paths Foundation in Boulder, and he and Father Thomas Keating were really close friends. And so as this school evolved, he kept trying to get accreditation for the school, of course, and that's really difficult to do.
Sure.
So he finally just started the school because I don't know if you know Rabbi Rami Shapiro or his work.
I don't.
Rami is a very special, very special teacher. And so Rami got all ticked off because we were doing a Spiritual Paths Foundation event that particular weekend. And all the people that were interested in coming to this potential school, Spiritual Paths, were to meet when the thing was over. So we were all sitting there. And Ed is kind of like a pretty laid back guy, and he'd been doing all of this by himself. The institute, the foundation, everything, you know, fundraising, writing, pulling the people together. And so Rami kind of got irritated, which she can be either hysterical or irritated. And he said, Ed, just start the school, damn it, you know, or I'm out of here. And so then we started the school the next 6 months later, and it included Ed being the Buddhist teacher and Rami being, of course, the Jewish teacher. And we had Dr. Cynthia Boujau, of course, for Christianity. And for Sufism and Islam, we had Kabir and Camille Helminski, who are, for anybody that might be listening, or if you've never read, I know you and I have read a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
Kabir and Camille are really special human beings on the Sufi path. In fact, Kabir is the first Mevlevi master in the West, the Rumi lineage of Sufism.
Oh, I love Rumi, my favorite poet.
Yes, me too. Very inspirational.
So inspirational. Every single thing I read is like resonates, you know. So you had.
Are you writing?
Pardon me?
Are you writing?
Am I writing? Yes, I'm always writing every day. There's so much information just pouring out of me. I can't seem to contain it. I just keep writing and writing constantly.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
For sure, for sure. So this school sounds like it was a beautiful opportunity for you to get so many spiritual teachers and masters together and collaborate.
Yes, it was. Yes. And Swami Atman Rupananda was our Vedanta teacher. He was the head of the Vedanta organization of Southern California in the time. Then he went back to India again after the school was over because he really needed to reconnect. So I don't think he's spending as much time in the States at all as he did, but he's also a wonderful teacher.
So that experience, what did that teach you about yourself, Constance? Stepping into that role, stepping away from the traditional academia and going into this sort of more spiritually enlightened path?
Well, I get extremely quiet. Extremely quiet. And one of the magical moments I had that very first time I sat with Ed and meditated that night. There's a little, we had a terrible flood here a couple of years back and some fires, and it completely wiped out this retreat center. And they're just hoping to rebuild, and they had a tiny little chapel. You could get like 10 people in it and meditate, and that was our first night with Ed. And he did a compassion meditation. And as we were meditating, I wore contacts in that time, and I started to feel a tear start to well up in my eye. And it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally it let go. And it slowly, like slow motion, went down my cheek, under my chin, and down into my cleavage, right to my heart. And that's what, and since this is a Catholic, it was a Catholic, owned by the Catholic Diocese in LA, this property. And then it had been sold to the nuns that it had been originally created for them to come on retreat. But the nuns wanted to grab it and go in an interspiritual direction. So that is just another part of the opening. You asked me that question, what changed? Well, I think there's that opening happens, that is just so vast of an opening where you no longer are just in that pigeonholed, really pigeonholed direction of academia.
Yeah. Once you crack that open, There's no stopping it. The expansion is eternal. You start growing and growing and growing and growing. It's really quite a remarkable journey, isn't it? I mean,
Yes, the vastness.
yeah, yeah.
How
So,
vast.
yeah. So, shortly after that, maybe I think it was 1997, you were offered a position at Ventura College.
Correct, yes.
What were you, did you create the program and approach them, or did they approach you? How did
No, I got a call from a girl I'd only met once, and she said, Constance, I heard that you left your job at UCSB. And I said, yeah. I said, I'm it's just not happening for me there. I didn't, what was supposed to happen for me when I started working there never did, because the girl I was hired to replace never quit.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah. So it was a big blip in my life. And at that time, it was still all about fitness and stuff. And I just kind of tossed that away.
Sure.
And then, so she called and said, you need to call right away and make an appointment with the dean, which I did that minute. And he actually made an appointment for me the next day. I drove over there, found the school, walked into his office, no committees, no anything like right now, like today there would be. And he and I had the best conversation, including the Cooper Institute in Dallas, which he had been to as well. And so we had that in common, and he hired me on the spot. And then the head of the department, who is still the head of the department, she and I became friends. And one day she knew that I was in a spiritual direction, you know.
Right.
Everybody would always think of me like the free spirit in the departments that I worked in.
Right.
And it was just that, you know, spiritual part, but a label nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
She caught me in the parking lot when I was coming to teach a class. And she said, Constance, would you be willing to put together a spiritual health class? And I want to put together a holistic studies program for the state of California.
Wow.
I go, oh gosh, that's perfect, Rayanne, let's do it. And so we did it. And I never thought that in the 2000s, education in the state of California was hurting financially big time. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, after all these hours and days of us creating a curriculum and going through the committees and all of this stuff, and then we finally send the packet up to Sacramento. In my mind, I'm just seeing it being buried by other proposals, you know, and forgotten about.
Sure.
And literally, like 3 weeks before the fall semester was supposed to start, Sacramento called and said, you're good for a go. You are now the first school in the state of the history of California to have a holistic studies program. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's so incredible. Wow.
It was incredible.
And it was so short notice. Did people sign up? I mean, because students.
Oh, that's interesting. The very first day, there were 25 people. And I had us in a circle, and they put me in the math department. I thought this is perfect because I like fusing. One of my big things has been being able to fuse science and spirituality. And so here we were in a math classroom. The irony did not pass me by. I wore all purple that day, subconsciously. My rings, everything was, well, God, look at this. I'm still in purple.
I know. Well, that's the crown chakra, right? You're so connected.
It's crazy. And I took my purple pen, dry erase board pen. I didn't know how I was going to begin the first word of the class. I had worked those weeks up until that point, totally, figuring out what I could do as a curriculum for this class. Mm-hmm. And I knew it had to be interspiritual. It couldn't be about one religion or another, or against, or anything. It had to be totally inclusive. And so I took the pen and I turned my back to the students and I said, well, this class is about one thing. And I wrote freedom in these huge letters across the board. And then I said, I'd like everybody to explain who you are and why you're here. And so the gentleman sitting right next to me was a man in his 70s. And he stood up and he said, I'm a retired professor, scientist. He said, I've been depressed most of my life, so I thought maybe this would be a good thing for me.
Wow.
Yeah. And the next person was a disenfranchised Catholic. And the next person was another disenfranchised Catholic who was just really depressed, and I didn't realize it.
Wow.
She was going through a pregnancy at the moment, and I didn't know any of this, you know.
Right.
Then the next couple of people went by, just sort of like, it just sounded interesting to me, a husband and a wife. And then another young man said, well, I left my home when I was 16. I was raised in a fundamentalist background, and I just had to get away. And so when I saw this was here, I needed to come. The kid sitting next to him said, well, my class at this time, that is offered at this time, I don't want to take. And I really just want to be around spiritual community. So all he was looking for was a community. And then a woman walked in late with another woman, and they sat down, and she said, well, today's my 40th birthday, and I've just been diagnosed with a fatal disease, and this is my friend. And then in walked in a girl really late, and she just plops herself down on the floor, and it was not the cleanest floor in the world. And she said, oh, I'm in AA, and I think I need this program, because we work on spirituality in AA. I said, well, that's great. And then the next girl was from Mexico, and she was a Mexican psychic. And
what? Oh my
yeah,
God.
seriously.
What an
Then
incredible collection of people.
Oh, I worked so hard on creating the program. I never thought of who would come.
Right. What an incredible group. That's an incredible group of people. That must have been such a special class.
Oh, it even gets better. The next two people were these two men that were kind of like probably right around 50. And they were both pretty much born again Christians. And one was really pretty strong, almost violently strong about his faith, you know, and that this interspiritual thing didn't sound, you know, right up his alley. Mm-hmm. And I just kept trying to say, oh, no, stay open, you'll see, you'll be able to use, it won't touch your faith in a negative way. Mm-hmm. In fact, if anything, it'll just support your faith. Right. What you will learn here. And then the next guy became a friend, and he took the class for as many times as they let him. He just kept coming every year. He brought his mother at one point.
Constance, that's so beautiful.
I know it. Wow. Oh, it was so great. Then the very one girl that was just going through a divorce and needed to change her career. And then the last one was this long blonde-headed girl named Stephanie, who looked like she should have been a sorority sister at UCLA. And she just jumped right up when it was her turn. And she said, well, hi, my name's Stephanie, and I'm Mormon, and I just love everything about spirit. So I was driving back from Ventura to Santa Barbara, and after the class, and I started to get scared. I went, oh no, have I bitten off more than I can chew, you know, because that was a whole thing, you know. Right. So again, I was given another divine intervention gift. In the morning, I was running off to my other job, and a gentleman I knew who's like the #1 psychiatrist in this town, and he and his wife, an oncologist, are good friends of mine over the years. And I never really talked to Bob because I always respected, you know, his space with what he did, that he would probably need a lot of downtime and not to be hit on by people. But I said, hey, Bob, I've got to ask you. I just started at interspiritual health class at Ventura College last night. And I said, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable about it. And he said, you're teaching him to meditate, right? And I go, yeah. And he said, you're fine, just go with it. Built the class within the first year up to 60 people in the class, with people trying to get in, you know, up to 70, 75 people.
Wow, Constance, that's so incredible.
Yeah. See, it's needed out there for all of you that want to teach this. It's needed.
Especially right now.
Yeah.
Very pivotal time in our...
It sure is.
It is. So I'm so honored that you're here. Thank you.
Well, no, I'm very honored that you invited me, and it took a little bit of time to get here. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. The main thing is you're here and we're having our conversation now, and I'm so grateful that you're You're here to share your light with all of us.
And thank you for continuing to do your work.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor, really. You know, it's
Yes,
a
I do.
labor of love.
Yeah,
We're here for
that smile of yours lights up a room.
Oh, thanks. I think, there's so many people out there right now who are awakening and they're seeking.
Yep.
And there's a lot of information on the internet, but you can really drown. You can really drown out there if you don't have a community of people to
That's
support
true.
you, or a mentor, or somebody to guide you. Ultimately, like, my perspective is, we're all here to guide ourselves home and find an alignment with our truth to God, whatever that looks like. Like,
Right.
there are no wrong answers. There's no wrong path. Everybody is going to get where they need to be regardless of the path they take. So I have zero judgment around whatever, our audience beliefs are, or whatever
Absolutely.
you're traveling is the right path for you. But people like Constance and I are here to really support you in your journey and kind of be almost like I feel like a light post. We're like a lamp in the dark. So if you are struggling, or if you're lost, there's so many of us out here for you to connect with or to help you on your journey. I think people really feel like there has to be one way, one answer, one truth. And I just don't find that to be true. What are your thoughts around that, Constance?
Oh, I completely agree with that. And as it all evolves for everybody, like you said, like, I'm now 65. I've spent the last 5 years in bed, except when I'm in a wheelchair going to a doctor to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And spirit is like, I'm a panentheist, and most people don't know what that means. People know atheist or pantheist or theist, etc. But a panentheist, actually, you just put en in the middle of the word pantheist. And a pantheist believes they see God everywhere, yeah? Or whatever name by which you choose to name that highest of all creational love. The entheist means that you see God everywhere, but it goes a step further by taking there's still something outside of everything. And I like that because that gives me a sense of being held. And I really like that. And for me, all the different directions and paths do, of course, move to the one. As the most ancient teachings, the Vedas, in India, have been teaching us for millennia. And I know in America, we kind of like early on during, I think maybe the 60s and 70s, that one thing got kind of like a little hippie connotation and probably turns a lot of people off. But if people would just sit and think about it, we all know that every kind of person is lovable and loving and caring and human. So for me, the only thing we're missing from a spiritual perspective is what happened to our humanity as each individual. Where is the humane part? Because you see such nasty vitriol, in many places.
I also think, too, that people have to realize that where they put their attention grows.
Yeah.
So if you are focused on the story, if you're focused on being a victim, if you're focused on the problem, you create and enhance the problem, because where you put your energy grows.
Absolutely.
So you have an opportunity to choose to focus on possibility, focus on healing, focus on solutions, focus on growth, focus on love and love towards ourselves. Because I really feel if we can get to a place where we love ourselves fully and completely, that is where you find pure healing and alignment. That is where your life begins to expand and you start to attract the things that are going to enhance and create opportunities in your life?
Absolutely, I would agree with you 1,010-fold. Yeah. Exponential growth.
Exponential. I don't think people realize that when they're constantly focused on the problem, you're putting yourself in a box, you're limiting yourself, and you're recreating the problem.
Yeah.
When you
exactly.
can step outside of that, when you can focus on the solutions to whatever the perceived problem is, and not only that, but not in a limited way, maybe the possibility that opens you up to receiving something maybe even far greater.
Absolutely.
I don't know. That's just kind of my perspective.
I think of it like a seed, you know. Even as a little kid, I sort of wanted to be Johnny Appleseed. I was fixated on him as a kid. I thought it'd be so fun to run around and just plant all these seeds.
I think you are planting seeds, Constance, but
something you just mentioned made me, when you said, you know, you just grow the problem bigger. It's like you're rooting. The tree, your tree is rooting. The roots are growing deeper and wider.
Yes.
So you've got to stop that, or you're going to stub the tree. I'm looking at some trees right now, and I just think, well, I'm always around trees. Did you know, this is off the subject, but did you know the latest kind of burial technique now is that besides you can bury yourself as a tree, the newest thing is that you become mulched. I'm serious. I know this is off topic.
You can become, they take your ashes and turn you into mulch?
Yes.
Wow.
They take your body. See that, Jim? Talking over the bar, yeah.
Wow.
You become compost.
Compost.
And to me, that's great.
Well,
I love the idea.
Sure.
Because it also relates to, you know, if you think of yourself like that garden, you can correlate that to maybe biblically, if you're Christian and really are strong with that belief, the Garden of Eden, of course, that you are always growing yourself and cultivating and nurturing it. And that's with like watching programs like yours, Wendy, to help cultivate and nurture your own exponential growth where you don't even know where you're going to go.
Exactly. And I think
that's
a huge part of that is actually fertilizing and watering your garden with your thoughts, with your choices, with your behaviors, what you invite into your life, you know, because so many of us out there are used to pouring Roundup on our garden and constantly, you know, telling ourselves we're not good enough, or we're a victim, or we're, you know, whatever the story is, we're constantly, instead of fertilizing and watering our garden and loving ourselves back, we're in our way, you know, telling ourselves we're no good, or we're in shame, or we're a failure, or whatever the story is, which is totally not true. You know, I just wish so many people could shift that story and start to fertilize and water that garden that you're talking about. It'd be so much, it'd be so powerful. You know, society would change if each of us could fertilize and water our own garden, you know, in such a positive way.
And yeah, that's how the book sort of obviously came to be, because the book is a lot of what my class is. And so the other book that I've been wanting to write for so long that you just reminded me is Wombing. And I used to think about it more from a female versus male perspective. We as women, we're because we held the womb. I always felt that maybe that was part of the thing with men, is that they couldn't connect the same way because they didn't have that womb, and maybe they felt cheated or something was not there that should have been. So maybe we all need to think of like the garden and the seed and the planting and the blooming and the nurturing and the cultivating and the rooting, you know, pulling out the roots that aren't right to be there.
Right.
They're all gnarling us
garden.
up.
We have to weed the garden too. You're right. You know, we've got to pull all those negative thoughts and ideas. We have to weed the garden, you know, to make room for more seeds to be planted and more magic and beauty to show up in our lives. You know, that's such a great metaphor for life, right? Our lives.
Yes.
I think. So when did you write your book? When did
Last summer. Well, I wrote it since the beginning of when we had that conversation in the parking lot, my colleague and I, when I started to put together this class that we didn't know was going to be yet. But I just threw my whole self into it because that was my passion for me. And then so all the best ideas and stuff that I had while I was teaching this, that the students responded to, went into the book. And I'm going to play off that this summer because I get 4 months off for summer.
Nice.
I get in 1 week from now, I'm on summer.
Yay, you're almost there.
Yep, and I can try to work more on my physical recovery, you know, as much as I can.
Well, I think it's amazing that you're doing so much. I just honor your journey and the fact that you're still teaching, that you're still inspiring all of us. Constance, tell us what your Facebook groups are so people can find you, because I love your posts. They're so beautiful.
Well, of course, Constance Mcclain is my name, and that's my main page. And I never put anything political or anything. I always try to post something of beauty so that people can start their day off in a beautiful, happy
You sure do.
umbrella.
I look at it every day.
Oh, you do? Oh, thanks.
Of course.
Baby. And then the next one I call Mindful Paths, also based on the beauty idea, cool pictures. And then one of my big ones that I think has gotten a ton of interest is Sacred Feminine Rising. It's really Sacred Feminine and Masculine, but I didn't want the name to be too long, so I just stuck with Sacred Feminine.
Right, I love it.
We do have to feel like it's okay that we rise. You know, if whoever our exemplars are, like if it's Christ, if it's the Buddha, if it's Oprah Winfrey for some people, whoever they really want to exemplify, then I think a lot of women just don't, as you were saying, you know, the victim and shame and all that, it just knocks you down so low. To think that you can actually rise after all that. And that yeah, you're just as viable as anybody else to do so.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, this reminds me of when I was going through a really dark time in my life. I felt sometimes it was so painful that I felt like I was just burning, like I was just in so much pain. Like I just felt like I was just on fire, like walking through fire, just burning, you know? But I realized when I got to the other side of that, and this was so powerful for me, that I was burning off all that shit that didn't serve me. I was burning, but I was walking through that fire and I was burning off everything that didn't serve me. And I was rising like a phoenix, you know? I was completely taken down to nothing and destroyed. But then and
that is such an essential step in the spiritual path.
Absolutely. It was just a complete reset, and it didn't destroy me. It made me stronger. And then I just rose like that phoenix, you know? And so this is just so reminiscent of that part of my journey. It was so powerful.
It's so true. Like we have to have the shit, as you said. The shit is really important. I mean, don't go out and find more. I'm sure you have enough. We all do.
You need to let it go, not bring it in. You let it go, but it can be so painful. You feel like your life is over. Just like, I don't even know how I'm going to survive the day. It's just you're suffering deeply, you know. And it's hard when you're in suffering to see your way out or find your way out, especially with.
Yes.
So
then let me leave you with one thought regarding that. The Latin root of spirit is as spiritus. And so if you think about that word, to be in spirit, to be inspired, we all know what it means to be inspired. It means that we're energized, we're light, we're excited about things. So when we breathe in, we inspire air. We breathe in the air, it's life itself. So if anybody listening is in that very deep, dark place, please go put yourself somewhere in nature and breathe and just watch the breath. Research shows us that if you are in a natural place of beauty, could be the beach or it could be a tree for me, that it'll be exponentially increased. So it can really help you pop out of this, that deep, dark place.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I know that's going to help somebody today.
I hope so.
Of course.
And may I mention the one other Facebook page, which is the baby. When I knew I was going to be doing, or that we would be doing a ministry when we became ordained ministers, which was the next step after Spiritual Paths Institute, was to become an ordained minister or chaplain. That's going to come next, chaplaincy for me.
I love that.
I mean, I should have been dead, but you don't stop when you're living. You just go. It doesn't make any sense to stop, does it?
You're such a great example, Constance. You just keep expanding, moving, changing, inspiring. You're such an incredible person.
Well, I want to thank you. Oh, well, we're just botany. I mean, not just botany, not to diminish botany, but we are botany. We're just a biological wonder.
We are. And we self-heal. There's so much that the human spirit is so remarkable.
Yeah.
Each of us
it's hard to...
each of us holds that God particle, that God spark, that divine spark.
Yep.
And everything is possible for us. And it's such a tragedy because our conditioning and programming has taught us that we aren't capable of reaching our full potential and greatness, that we need to settle in some way, or that.
Oh, God, no.
It's so tragic because,
it is.
As you expand and you go on this journey, you realize that everything is unlimited potential in every aspect. So it's so sad we attach to that human programming and that mindset that, well, there's a paycheck, let's get this job. Well, this guy's not so great, but, I've got a roof over my head. You know what? No. We deserve so much more. We are worth so much more. We need to honor that, and honor ourselves and honor our truth.
And the minute we get that, then we, in turn, help to fertilize so much more, just like good old Johnny Appleseed.
Right.
So I just sort of want to challenge all my students to be Appleseed, planters.
I love that.
I mean, it's a wonderful thing to do in your life,
So I know getting ordained was great as a reverend.
Yes, it was.
Well, as your partner did that with you, how did that come about?
Oh, that was amazing. Well, Jim is definitely divine intervention in my life. After my stroke, I hate to keep bringing this up, but I went through a couple $100,000 in caregivers. And that's the money I had saved. It was gone. It was gone in a heartbeat. And then I was introduced to Jim through some people. It turned out that we grew up just a few miles from each other in a suburb of Chicago. He was a couple years older than I am. And he went to the University of Chicago, where my father got his PhD. And so there was all this connection. And he's a musician. My undergrad degree's in music. And so he came out for a visit, and then he decided to come back and stay.
Wow.
And he literally has not had a day off in helping me 24/7. He gets me to school. He comes into the schoolroom with me. He does everything that has to do with the computer for me because I'm in my wheelchair.
Wow. Yeah. What a gift.
Jim Walker, he's an amazing musician, Wendy. You might appreciate this. If anybody of your listeners are having trouble sleeping or need help with meditation, there is a wonderful free app out there called Insight Insight Timer, excuse me.
Yeah, Insight Timer. Great.
Jim is like one of the #1 composers on that site. So every morning he wakes up to little emails from people around the world, you know, because he's a true composer. He's not just
beautiful. I love that. Can you?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Him in particular on Insight Timer? Can you search by name, like of the? So what's his full name? And we'll put it below in the video so people can find him. What's?
Oh, yeah. It's James Anthony Walker.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put that down below. So go to Insight Timer. It's a free meditation app. And James Anthony.
At any given time, you'll be meditating with like 7 million other people around the world. It just keeps growing. It's a pretty phenomenal app.
That's great. That's great. So thank you for sharing that. And we should honor Jim for being so magnificent and supportive in your journey and allowing you to do your work. So he's just as integral. I always tell my husband, I thank him all the time for allowing me to step onto my path and step into my greatness because of his love and support. You know.
What's his name?
My husband? His name's Michael.
Yay, Michael.
Yay, Mike. Thanks, Mike. Without him, I couldn't really do what I do, and I feel very blessed to have him in my life. We've been together 35 years.
No way.
Yeah.
Wendy, how do you look so young?
Those Asian genes, I guess. That and a hairstylist colors my hair. Yeah, my children are 25 and 26. I have 2
That's amazing.
sons, and I'm blessed by them every single day. You know.
Did you guys meet when you were at UCSB?
We did. We sure did. And the crazy story around that is my husband and I met my freshman year, and we grew up in Hawaii within 3 blocks of each other. And we knew each other our whole lives until we got to college, and we met in college. But that was so crazy. Like, we grew up in the same neighborhood, like just 3 blocks away. But we went to separate private schools, so we never met, you know, because from kindergarten I was in one private school for Hawaiian kids, and he went to the, you know, the prep school for all of the wealthy. I was like with the poor kids. He was with the wealthy kids. Yeah, but our paths, you know, life has a way of bringing you together, and somehow we were so emotional. We just had our 30. We were together 35 years, but married 31. We just had our anniversary, and we're just like, oh my God, we made it. We were all choked up, you know.
Well, he obviously got a diamond, so.
I sure did. I was so blessed. And it sounds like you have one as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, I know that you've become, you're doing so much. Tell me a little bit about where you're at right now and what your passion is. And I think I saw something recently on Facebook. It was about 3 or 4 months ago, about spiritual teachers or mentors. Or
I'm trying to do next, and I kind of got sick in the middle of doing it, and so we had to postpone it for a month or 2, and I'm hoping to do that the first part of the summer, and then start working on another book and another project with Jim. But no, I'm putting together Oasis of the Heart Healing Circles. I think that's what you probably.
Yes, tell me about that. I would love to be a part of that, you know, here in Texas.
Well, when you think of the Sangha in Buddhism, right? And it's the same thing, like in the Christian tradition, when it is said, when 2 or more are gathered in his name. When people come together spiritually, once again, it's that big energy that grows.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Oasis of the Heart Healing Circles was just a means by which I could teach people how to put together circles so we could eventually, in my mind, for many years, created something called Moving Grace way back in the 80s. And Moving Grace, if you see it spelled out, it's just MOVINGRACE, only one G. Moving race or race, moving race, one people, the human race. That's all that there is. And so through these healing circles, ideally, I see people around the world putting them together. And it's not like it's a dogmatic, you have to teach this or teach that, but whatever the circle calls for. But just so people can have circle protocols so they know how to do it and feel safe and comfortable in doing so.
I love that. Oasis of the heart. I'm going to have to talk to you more about that when our interview's over. I'd love to be a part of that. So
you will be.
I feel like I'm being called to do that for sure. So Constance, how are you? Do you get information through your meditations? Like, how are you guided? How are you divinely guided to move you forward in your work? And what have you found to be a tool that's helped you go through all of this adversity with your stroke and so many uncertain times, financially, physically, you've had so many challenges?
Well, without question, mindfulness meditation has taken me through so many different of these health challenges that no one could ever tell me anything otherwise. And also, my heart tells me. I use my heart as my organ of perception. I try to hear and see and think through my heart, not my head, not my prefrontal cortex.
That's magic.
No, it's not. What, honey?
I said, that's the magic, is living from the heart space and getting out of the head. And your mind is your ego. Your mind is your ego. And your mind will always lead you astray, but your heart never does. That's where your truth
That's right.
Right?
It's always honest. Brutal.
Always. Even if we don't want to hear it.
Correct. Exactly.
So
especially.
Yeah. So your advice would be drop into your heart space. Always.
Always. And cultivate that too. Visualize little ears, little eyes, a little brain.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I would love to give you the opportunity. We're kind of coming up on the end of our time here together, but I would love the opportunity to share anything you feel called to share to feel complete around our conversation today.
Well, it would just be that I love feeling love, and I just know that through spirit we feel love in a much different way than we feel love with lack of spirit. So if someone has not been trying to develop themselves spiritually, that they can realize that you can. And to do so right away, run, don't stop to collect $200, just now, go,
Yes.
in whatever direction you feel called, and trust that. Don't ask permission of people.
Right. Because the journey's your own.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
That's beautiful. Well, Constance, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure
No, thank you, Wendy,
to talk to you today and share all your wisdom. I'm going to put all of your information at the end of the video and in the description on YouTube as well, so people can find you, reach out to you, find your book. I feel like
thank you.
So much ahead of you,
Yes, me too. Otherwise, what's the point,
Right. It's going to be
if you're not in it for other people, then you might as well just check out. I don't want to just take up space on the planet, Well,
we're all here for a reason. We're all here to contribute and lift each other and guide each other. And every single one of us has a purpose. I really
absolutely
try to stress that, because so many people feel like, I'm insignificant, I'm getting by. That's not true at all.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no.
Every single person
Everybody
is,
does that.
yes, has a purpose and creates impact, and we get to choose if it's going to be positive or negative.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that people who tune in and hear us talking will make a choice to work on themselves and expand, and then in turn impact the lives positively of the people around them. And think of how powerful that would be if exponentially that grew, one person at a time. We could really change the world.
We can.
Right? Well, Constance, thank you so much. It was an honor talking to you today. To my,
An honor and blessings to everybody.
oh, yes, to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you will check out all the videos on the path of me, subscribe, like, and share if it resonates. And I always say, be kind to yourselves. I love you all. And we'll see you next time.